this is Adam Bernard with AutoPerspectives, and it is time again for a news roundup. So let's take a look at some of the more interesting stories that are circulating around the auto industry. We will start over in France with Alpine. This is the legendary French sports car brand that is now part of the Renault Group. It's actually relaunched in 2017 with the A110, a lightweight mid-engine internal combustion powered vehicle. And then in 2021, Renault, as part of their Renaulution strategy, decided to reboot Alpine as an electric high-performance brand to compete with Porsche, believe it or not. The initial plans for Alpine included a collaboration with Lotus to create a next generation A110 that would be now a purely electric sports car, still lightweight, and this would be built alongside a new Lotus branded electric two-seater. Unfortunately, that partnership only lasted for about 2 years. In 2023, it was dissolved, and so both companies went their separate ways, Lotus to do their own thing and Alpine to do their own thing as well. Alpine's current portfolio includes the A290, which is a hot hatchback based on the Renault 5, and the A390, which is a compact SUV. That vehicle is related to the Renault Megane. It shares some of the interior components, but all the sheet metal and a lot of the powertrain is unique to Alpine. Now we're getting more details on the next generation A110, which is due in 2027, so next year, including the fact that it will share components with the Renault 5 Turbo 3E. The new A110 is expected to be only slightly larger with a similar look to today's vehicle, which again is not a bad place to start, and it will use the new internally developed Alpine performance platform. So this won't be based on any existing Renault or Nissan architecture. It'll use a 70 kilowatt hour battery pack mounted behind the seats, and the reason to do that and not go for a conventional skateboard setup is to be able to keep the seats low because, of course, this is a sports car. It has a couple of aggressive targets, including a curb weight of 1,500 kilograms and a range of 300 miles. If they can hit the former, they should be able to hit the latter. This should be a pretty aerodynamic vehicle. That plus the lightweight should enable them to hit 300 miles out of that 70 kilowatt hour battery. Now, initially, the A110 will be rear drive. It'll use two motors in the back. But again, referencing the Renault 5 Turbo 3E, it could add two front-mounted in-wheel motors to get an all-wheel drive setup, and that's similar to what the Renault 5 Turbo 3E uses. So the technology will be on the shelf by the time the A110 hits the market. The interior of the A110 will be the first that is not derived from an existing Renault vehicle, so that we get a little more design freedom here. It's expected to use both screens and physical controls, as we see physical controls becoming trendy again from a safety and from an ergonomic standpoint. There'll be both a coupe and a convertible. You can see a sketch of the convertible here from Autocar. And there will be a long wheelbase 2+2 derivative as well. That's likely to pick up the A310 moniker. The new sports cars will, of course, target Europe, where Alpine is already big. They're hoping to build a presence in Asia as well. There is a chance they'll come to America. At one point a couple of years ago, they announced official plans to bring Alpine to America with two larger SUVs to begin with, the A490 and 590. Now, between the slowdown in EV adoption and the tariff situation, Alpine is not so sure they want to invest in the American market yet. So you may have to travel to Europe if you want to see one of these vehicles in the flesh, but we can always hope. Next up, we'll switch gears and switch countries to Sweden/China with Polestar. Now, you might recall that Polestar was the performance sub-brand for Volvo until they decided to spin it off, make it its own brand, which, like Alpine, is all electric and targeting Porsche. Now Polestar is owned by Geely, so they get access to the whole Geely technology portfolio. They sold about 60,000 vehicles last year, but they just announced this past week plans to roll out 4 models by the end of 2028, targeting eventual annual sales of 100,000 units. So still, relatively speaking, a niche brand, but at least not totally niche like a Bentley or a Rolls-Royce. And you can see in the upper left there, the little graphic that Polestar provided showing the numbers in the planned rollout. So first up is the 5. The 5 is their flagship sedan to compete with vehicles like the Mercedes EQE and the Lotus Electra and the Porsche Taycan. Deliveries on the 5, which was unveiled last year, will start next summer. It seems to be pretty impressive. It uses Polestar's brand new bonded aluminum architecture, as well as some cool safety and performance technologies. Next up is the Polestar 4. The current Polestar 4 is an SUV coupe, so that vehicle will be branded the Polestar 4 Coupe, and then there will be just a regular Polestar 4, and that's the vehicle in the image here that you see from Autocar. It is essentially kind of an estate variant. So longer, flatter roofline, more cargo space, easier to get in and out of the rear seat. And as is sort of hinted in the graphic there on the upper left, it will actually get a rear window, unlike the current Polestar 4, which has no rear window, but does use a digital rear view mirror. So that'll broaden the appeal of the 4. Then after that is the Polestar 2, next generation. There was some fiddling back and forth about whether there was going to be a next generation 2 or not, but they have settled on yes, we do want to do another one. It'll be based on the current architecture, and Polestar says it was developed in about 30 months, which represents probably some of the influence of Geely and Chinese speed. It's likely to get both more colorful and more physical. The current Polestars are kind of heavy on the grays and beiges and whites. And so, but as the industry is getting a little more colorful, Polestar doesn't want to be left behind. So look for a little more color in the next generation 2. And Polestars are also rather screen intensive. And so they are looking to move away and add some more actual physical controls, and we'll see that show up in the 2 as well. And then finally on the far right, you see there'll be a new Polestar 7. That is a new portfolio entry. It is a smaller SUV that would slot below the Polestar 4, arriving in 2028 and likely derived from the recently unveiled Volvo EX60. So very much a state-of-the-art architecture. You might think we're missing a number here, which is 6. The 6 has already been shown. That's an electric roadster. They've taken some orders. They've said they're going to build a limited run of them, but they haven't actually decided when to launch it yet. And now it looks like it's going to show up after the 7, so sometime after 2028. But Polestar assures us that it's still in the works, so we'll have to wait and see. Will this fix Polestar? It certainly seems like it's going to put them in a better position. Again, the tariff situation and the slower EV adoption is proving to be problematic for Polestar, but the products themselves seem to be pretty competitive. So we'll see if they can at least manage to find 100,000 buyers a year by 2028. And we go back to France with DS. The original DS3 was launched in 2010 as a 2-door hatchback. That was the brand's entry-level model. It was relaunched in 2018 as a small 4-door crossover, and now it's being reimagined again and renamed. So it'll now be called the DS number 3 when it launches around 2028 as a 4-door hatchback. DS is the premium brand that, like Polestar, was spun off from its parent. It was originally under Citroën. It was supposed to be a premium offshoot, and of course named for the original Citroën DS, the innovative sedan that was launched in 1955. It's never really quite reached its volume potential, and it's rumored to be one of the brands on the chopping block within the vast Stellantis brand portfolio. When FCA and PSA merged, a lot of folks assumed some brands would not make the cut. Turns out Stellantis said, nope, we want them all. Turns out supporting a lot of brands costs a lot of money and resources. And so some folks are wondering whether DS is going to last. But so far, they are still working on future product. The new number 3 will be a 5-door B-segment hatchback, likely leveraging the new Stella Small architecture with both hybrid and EV options. It's expected to draw on some of the newer DS models like the DS number 8 for inspiration, but DS says they're also looking to create a new design philosophy with this vehicle. And this is an artist's impression, by the way, from Auto Express. The original DS3, they note, was equally appealing to both male and female buyers. And you don't see a lot of vehicles like that today in the business. And so DS is looking to keep that balance, as well as a way to balance elegance versus sportiness. This is not as performance-oriented as an Alfa Romeo, but maybe a little sportier than Lancia. So we'll see if they can pull that off in the next couple of years. And finally, it's up to Canada for a couple of concepts from the Automotive Parts Manufacturers Association, the APMA. They unveiled 2 new electric car concepts at the Canadian International Auto Show in Toronto last week. And these are both under the Project Arrow initiative. This is designed to showcase the country's ability to develop its own EVs and leveraging both its own industry and supply chain. So just to remind the rest of the global auto industry that there's a lot going on in Canada for folks who are looking for partners. What you're looking at here is the Vector, which is a high-performance EV derived from a similar concept shown 3 years ago. It's got a more dramatic look and a power boost from 550 up to 650 horsepower and a reported range of about 341 miles. The chassis is 3D printed from both aluminum and polymers and reportedly equipped with technology to allow level 3 driving. Again, it's not clear there's a fully running prototype here. This may be a little more virtual and theoretical. It was joined by the Borealis. The Borealis is a larger SUV with a skeletal-like structure using a 3D printed chassis from metal alloys. The powertrain itself is also 3D printed. Now, they didn't give us a lot of details on the powertrain itself, but they are claiming a targeted range of 932 miles. So this is probably a little more future thinking here. It's also targeting level 5 autonomy, which means hands-free, mind-free, do the crossword puzzle, play board games, etc. No steering wheel, no brake pedals, etc. Not unlike something like the Amazon Zoox or the Tesla Cybercab. Both vehicles, the Vector and the Borealis, were built with Ontario Tech University with input from over 80 Canadian suppliers and partners. So again, no plans for production, but hopefully generate a little more business for Canada's automotive supply community. And that about wraps things up for this week with our news roundup. If you like what you see and hear, please subscribe and share. And if you want to learn more, visit AutoPerspectives.net. Check out our blog, look for me on LinkedIn, and we'll see you back here in 7 days. So long.